Welcome to the Mastering the Game of Life podcast. In this podcast, there'll be insights around 3 key areas to mastering the game of life: purpose, prosperity, philanthropy. Your host, Paul Lowe, the third sector mentor, is the founder of Hearts Global CIC, which along with many other of his charitable commitments has been responsible for positively impacting thousands of people's lives, particularly young people from disadvantaged communities. Author of Mastering the Game of Life, From Pain to Purpose, and Speaking from Our Hearts books. Introducing your host, Paul Lowe.
Welcome, listeners. Hope I find you all well. In this health-related podcast, the focus will be around understanding the benefits of having good physical health. To provide expert insights, I'm very pleased to invite back Dr. Shan Hussain as we talk about content from his magnificent book, The Big Prescription. Welcome, Dr. Shan.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Very good. So let's start by asking, if we may, what are the benefits of having good physical health?
Well, I think it's important to remember that health is a tool. It's not an outcome. It's not about, having great health. It's about what great health can give you in terms of how you want to perform, in terms of your relationships, your business, and your energy levels, and ultimately how you feel. So that's the way I really look at health in terms of what it can actually give us. And, that's really the key element that I'm trying to educate people around. It's not so much about having great health or being in great physical shape. It's the results of that. And that can be very individual for different people.
Of course. In your book, Dr. Shan, you refer to the acronym N.O.R.M.A.L. For the benefit of the listeners, can you just expand on this a little, please?
Yeah, so N.O.R.M.A.L is, I think it's obviously very difficult to sustain the kind of diet that I've written in the book. And so with hindsight, I prefer to now just talk about a whole food diet and how we can focus on natural foods that are devoid of any artificial elements to it or anything processed within it. But N.O.R.M.A.L, the way I wrote it then, that stood for foods that are natural, organic, raw where appropriate, meat-free, additive-free, and lactose and dairy-free. And that's really a simple way to look at what we should ideally be eating and try and shift the balance toward that. And the general recommendation that I give is to try and aim for around about 80% of our diet consisting of normal food. And a quick way that we do that as a family is when we are heading down to our supermarket or grocery store, just check the basket or check the trolley at the end and just say, does this look approximately 80% normal? Because that's where we're really getting the nutrients that we need to support our physical constitutions from those sort of foods that really are balanced and have those active components that will actually support our health and well-being, rather than being totally imbalanced and rich in carbohydrates and largely devoid in essential vitamins and minerals and usually fairly high fat as well. So yes, that was basically a simple acronym that I put together. And I think the short advice I would give is just stick to whole foods, things that we know we're supposed to eat, not things that are packaged and processed and unlikely to be very healthy.
One might deduce it's normal to be normal. Okay. Right. This is an interesting one for me, Dr. Shan, because one of the words, I wouldn't call it a pet hate, but one of the words that intrigues me, let's leave it at that, is, again, I'm referring to your book, the power of self-motivation. That M word intrigues me. And I've put brackets, inspired when getting married.
Mm-hmm.
You tell that how we go through this self-motivation phase. If New Year's a prime example, isn't it? I'm going to buy a gym membership. I've got some new trainers. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to pack up smoking. I'm going to do this. We have something that's motivating us to do that. And I always challenge that word motivation to a more deeper rooted one, inspired. I mean, do you have any kind of deeper views around that? I mean, I know it, in terms of a message, self-motivation is a phrase that, people understand. And obviously the purpose of this conversation is not, it's not an academic exercise by any stretch of the imagination. But I make the point, Dr. Shan, because for me, motivation is something that's relatively superficial and doesn't last, whereas inspiration is deep-rooted. It's got real power. Hence your example that you alluded to when you was getting married.
Yes. I mean, much like you, I get tired of a lot of motivational speakers and self-appointed gurus who talk about how we've got to, get motivated and stay motivated. Motive just means reason. That's all it is. And it ultimately comes back to the reasons why we want to do anything. And what I talk about in the book was a personal story about when I was going to get married, and I was hugely out of shape. I was probably in the worst shape of my life at the time. And I just thought, well, hang on, I'm going to get married in, I think it was 6 or 7 months we set the date. And, I don't want to be looking like this. So I started to take care of myself, looked into my health, and started to find those reasons why I really wanted to be in shape and make sure that I was going to be presenting myself with my sort of best physical appearance for the most important day of our lives. And what I talk about nowadays with the motivational side of things is, if there's anything you want to achieve in terms of your health or your well-being, whatever it might be, whether you want to lose weight or have more energy or get better sleep or manage your stress, it's important to understand what your reasons behind it are. And rather than, reading books on motivational strategies or talking to these high-profile personal development experts, just grab a pen and paper and write down 100 reasons why you want to achieve whatever your goal is. Physically write those down. And there might be some overlap, but the more reasons you write down, the more you're going to find things within that list that's going to be emotionally compelling, much like the inspiration that you're describing here. And I actually worked with a client based in New York a few months ago who wanted to lose weight, and she wrote down a few reasons, didn't go all the way to 100. But interestingly, her husband, who wasn't a client but was just taking an interest in what she was doing, he went the whole hog and did everything, followed the directions and the guidelines, and he ended up losing about 2 stone, and I think it's more than that. It was about 2.5 stone in the space of 6 weeks, just by really understanding what his real reasons were behind wanting to lose that kind of weight. And the strategy after that was very, very easy for him to implement. And unfortunately, his wife didn't quite get the same kind of results. But I think that's really a demonstration of why it's important to understand why you want to achieve a specific goal. People say, I want to lose weight. And I think, okay, well, that's great, but why? What's the reason why? And say, well, I want to feel better. So, okay, well, that's great. Why? And let's go really deep as far as we can to really understand the reasons behind the reasons. And once that is actually defined, it can really be that, as you say, moment of inspiration that can start to trigger the positive changes that are needed to be implemented to help people get the health results they're seeking.
Absolutely. And would it be fair to say, Dr. Shan, that there is a caveat on that, though? Beware the pursuit of perfection.
Yes, this isn't about perfection. I think that it's more about looking for progress, looking for improvement. It's understanding where you are and where you want to be, and then starting to take the right steps towards that. I think, we can talk about perfection if you like. One could make the argument that everything within nature is as it's supposed to be. So maybe we are already perfect the way we are, simply because this is how we have responded, or, we've been put in the place as a result of everything that's ever happened to us. This is exactly where we should be. But I'm more interested in where people want to be in terms of their health and well-being. And so, I don't worry myself about perfection. I'm more interested in how we can support people towards reaching their health goals.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, Dr. Shan. That hopefully that's given the listeners 1 or 2 brief insights into being normal, the power of motivation, stroke inspiration, and beware of the pursuit of perfection. So my sincere gratitude to you for sharing your many insights. and to you, the listeners, for being part of this Mastering Life podcast. Until next time, keep learning and loving, and always remember, mastering life starts by embracing our hearts.
Thanks for listening to the Mastering the Game of Life podcast. Drop a line to paul@paulloharts.com with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Alternatively, check out Paul's website at paulloharts.com or any of his social media feeds under the same name. Remember, mastering life starts by embracing our hearts.